Yo, parish orphans. Today I'm treating of a question that seems so fundamental to the lives of every single Christian out there. You don't even have to be a Catholic to ask this question. Like, what's the most historically, and I'll also toss in philosophically, groundable, reasonable religion? And of course, we know it's Christianity. I'll show that. I was even dinking around on ChatGPT. I'll show you some of those screenshots. Like, hey, ChatGPT, what's the most reasonable religion? And it's like, here are three. And of course, Christianity's in there. It's like, but pick one, dude. And this is what I like about ChatGPT. You could push it. Pick one, though. Think what's the most rational, reasonable on a priori, is what I meant by the first. Reasonable, meaning a posteriori, second, and then include like historically grounded evidence for a chain of evidence for even the more miraculous claims, religion by religion. What's the best of these three? And it feels like classical theist forms of Christianity. And there's really only one truly classically theist form of Christianity. That's Roman Catholicism. The more I learn about Orthodoxy, it's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Now I will be debating that and questions related to that in Florida on Friday with Jay Dyer on Elijah Schaefer's show. That's going to be a good head-to-head debate between Jay and I. Friends. We'll be playing enemies for the debate, frenemies or whatever, but I like Jay. And it's going to be good because it's in person and it's going to be moderated. It's going to be timed. I love that. But, okay, so for the purposes of today, we'll pause a little bit on Catholicism versus Orthodoxy. It's so clear. This is, I guess, mainly an anti-Protestant show, because it's just so clear that there is only one and a half forms of Christianity that goes all the way back to Jesus. And without undertaking all the complex, filioque, papal debates that need to be had to tell really what's the best form of apostolic Christianity. There's only apostolic Christianity. And then you have Protestantism. And Protestantism is not apostolic. I asked ChatGPT, can we go to my first tweet? Sure. Or the second, the comment on the tomorrow evening live stream, the follow-up. Yeah, if you click on that top one, Steffi.
Just a second, let me find it.
Thanks. It's under tomorrow evening live stream. And then I followed up with a comment. So you have to click on it and thank you.
I don't see any
go
comment
down
on that one.
I retweeted it as live in 20 minutes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah, it's the top tweet, but it's a comment below it. I can retweet the little.
Oh, is this right here?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
We're just asking basically, at a basic level, how old is the oldest sect of Protestantism? And I guess Protestants guard against this obvious fact that it's 508 years old at the oldest. Lutheranism, they guard by saying, well, that's just Catholic revisionist history. Okay, well, I just asked ChatGPT. I mean, it's not biased. It's like a thought robot or whatever, agent intellect on the interwebs. And it's like the oldest sect of Protestantism is generally considered to be Lutheranism. From 1517, it's the first Protestant movement. And I followed up with the next one in that same tweet. Next screenshot is, well, do any sects of Protestantism go all the way back to Jesus? I mean, you expect a religion to go back to its founder, right? They say that the founder of Protestantism is Jesus, and you can't even get a straight answer out of Protestants. Do you go all the way back to Jesus, though? And they're like, ChatGPT, in the strictest sense, no Protestant sect can be traced all the way back to Jesus, as Protestantism is a movement only emerged in the early 16th century with the Reformation led by figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin. I don't know how they get around this. I mean, I'm just trying to be real with everybody here today. And probably the last show I'll do for a little bit. And so it's newsflash, Protestantism is only 508 years old. Who knew? We're going to get into some of the other ones, which is the older sect, Orthodoxy, Catholicism. You know, that depends on, well, who broke away from whom? You know, that depends on, well, did they ever really accept the Pope? And that's a pretty clear answer. But I think it's fun to go through the kind of analysis where you ask a, you know, objective third party on the internet, especially an AI tool like ChatGPT, does history actually prove Catholicism? Or is that, here's another one I retweeted by Catholicism a little below that, where Cajun made this joke, up-and-coming Catholic apologist known as Grok is hitting the scene, red-pilling future converts. Can we show that one? This is kind of hilarious too. Grok is the apologist in question here. It was ChatGPT last time. Now it's Grok. So this is AI collocating all that info that's out there in the ether web. And this comes from a Protestant, I think, who said Grok debunked the Catholic quote-unquote church and proved the Baptist church. And Grok responded, well, historical evidence shows the Catholic Church originated in the 1st century AD, founded by Jesus Christ and his apostles, with early references like Ignatius of Antioch using the term Catholic Church in 107 AD. This is not the response that they sought, whoever originally tweeted this out and requested that Grok got involved. This is not what they were looking for. The Baptist Church emerged in the 17th century from English separatists, emphasizing sola scriptura and believers' baptism. They don't like the paedo-baptism of most other Christians. I can't debunk Catholicism or prove Baptist superiority. Both are Christian traditions. But Catholicism has unbroken apostolic succession and Baptists do not. Faith is personal. That's Grok trying to be diplomatic in the final 3 words of this obliteration.
Paste, Grok.
Paste, Grok. Like, hey, faith is personal. You can be an idiot. You know, and I always talk Mississippi up because I moved here because it's the reddest state in the union and because Baptists are technically Christian. It's the most Christian state in the union. So it's most conservative and most Christian. And also it's just beautiful. So I moved here 5 years ago and I live around a bunch of the Baptists and I love a lot of these people. They're good people. But it's, you know, faith is personal, as Grok says. But Baptists get obliterated when you apply an objective metric and you try to say, well, show that being a Baptist is better than being a Catholic. Even Grok and ChatGPT are like, sorry, dude. I have something to say about Mississippi in a sec. Yeah.
We have a challenge in chat. He says, also the Lutheran Church, we literally have churches with episcopal succession traceable to the apostles. You
don't. That's the thing. You don't. You don't. You don't have, I mean, the succession goes from Catholic and Orthodox churches. Remember when Jay asked that one guy, that third guy in our debate, I don't even remember his name. Have you heard of branch theory? There's not one branch that is tied to the tree in a meaningful way. What? What's up? You smell something?
Yeah.
I smell something too.
Yeah.
Smell like coffee?
I think the kids just like made some popcorn or something.
Smells like coffee. I was like, am I imagining this?
Yeah.
So yeah, under branch theory, that's just not true. I think here's what happens with retardo Protestantism. They get used to so much disagreement between Catholics and Orthodox and then all like 40,000 types of Protestants that they think they can just say anything. They say, yeah, we have apostolic succession too. No, brother. The Catholics do and the Protestants do. It's called apostolic Christianity for a reason. Both Catholics and even Protestants. What do you think the Protestants are paying me to say this? I'm not trying to like be extra cool with them. It's just a fact. They were the 2 lungs of the church in the first millennium. You know, the first millennium ending 500 years before there was such a thing as a Protestant. They're the 2 lungs, the Western lung, the Latin lung, the better lung, and the Eastern lung, the Greek lung. They both are apostolic, meaning they were both founded in a sense by Jesus. Now, For the first 1,000 years, Protestants acknowledged that Christianity requires a pope. So, I mean, there's troubles with Orthodoxy. Of course, I'm going to tell you this, but they were a more real. They are a church. They have fewer problems when they acknowledge the Pope, because then you can be a full, real type of Christian because Jesus instituted the papacy, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no question, no matter what I say about their kooky views about the papacy, I would never question that their bishops stand in the shoes of apostles. Now, this is what Protestants just don't get. They didn't pay me to say this. It's a fact. Their bishops are in the lineage that go, if we were applying branch theory to, non-Catholics or non-Protestants, we say, this goes all the way to the root. You can't say that about this made-up, kooky, like book club religion. You can't say it whether you do it, whether you like it, love it. I like a lot of my Baptist friends here in Mississippi, more like neighbors, but it's just a fact that their bishops are recognized by ours because they're apostolic. Our bishops are recognized by theirs, even though the Catholics have a lot of fruity bishops. I'm a Catholic admitting that, but they're still standing in the sandals of the apostles, theirs and ours. Theirs tend to be these bearded guys. Ours tend to be these usually unbearded guys. Problems in both episcopates, to be honest, Catholic and Orthodox. I'm not saying anything's perfect, but they're perfectly apostolic. Okay, so we'll get into other kinds of challenges, and I do encourage super chats for this show.
Super chat tip if you want to argue with them. Also, update, they did burn popcorn down there. So.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on?
It was a charred remain of a bag.
Yeah, that just seems like an obliterated popcorn. But we were talking about Mississippi, moving out here, living among the Baptists, living in the reddest state, living in the Christianist state. I did so 5 years ago because I was a native Californian, had spent some time in Texas where I met Steph, but I knew I wanted to get to the deep South. And if you want to do that too, which is really what I encourage, being around people that are at least politically like-minded, or at least Christian. The state is basically Christian, is basically officially Christian here. It's just Baptist. But, South Mississippi is very Louisiana, and there's a lot of Catholic influence in South Mississippi as well. But what I encourage is for all of you to get to this blood red swath of red states. Go to realestateforlife.org and move here or move someplace in the blood red swath of states. I got from the bluest of the blue to the reddest of the red. Real estate for life is what everyone out there should do. I'm not one of these guys that tells you what to wear to mass, whether your kids should play video games or not. I actually think your kids should play video games. I think you should play with them. I don't go around doling out prudential advice, but I do in this area. I'm very convinced your life will improve if you have the latitude with your job to move to this area of the country. It will improve. It's cheaper, better cost of living, Trump flags everywhere. I mean, we used to think that was incredibly right wing. Now it just means semi-sane. Go to realestateforlife.org and a pro-life, usually Catholic person will help you get from your blue state to a red state. Do it today. Real Estate for Life. Also, please support this channel through Rules for Retrogrades, rulesforretrogrades.locals.com. I've been kicked off of Patreon for sticking to my guns. I've had jobs taken from me for sticking to my guns. Had a big fat Patreon account that was really nice. And they said, take these videos down. If you don't, we're taking all your money. And I was like, that's fine, I'll rebuild. And I got on Locals and I never rebuilt, but I do need monthly support from still rebuilding.
I have not rebuilt.
What did MJ say about the Chicago Cubs? They've been rebuilding since like 1942. Some rebuilds go a lifetime. But we'd like to get there with Locals. Please do support the channel by giving $5 or $10 a month on Locals. You get a lot in return. At the very least, subscribe to this channel. So the Grok is an up-and-coming Catholic apologist because you can ask it sassy anti-Catholic questions and it'll come back at you with Well, sorry, I can't debunk Catholicism or prove Baptist superiority. Both are Christian traditions, but Catholicism has unbroken apostolic succession and Baptists do not. That's hilarious. And same thing with, what I was asking Chat GPT, where it's like, hey, how old is the oldest sect of Protestantism? I didn't ask it in as clever a way. Everyone's like, 508 years or whatever. This October, this Halloween, ain't it? Halloween is is the advent of Protestantism. It's a scary, scary date. Is I think October the 31st, 1517. And then, but you could get a little sassier and be like, hey, ChatGPT, do any sects of Protestants go all the way back to Jesus? And it's like, no. I mean, here's the thing. Remember when Richard Dawkins tried to say, well, we're not sure. Historians aren't even sure that Jesus of Nazareth existed. And then all the other atheists got embarrassed for him. And you're like, shut up. You're embarrassing us. Jesus of Nazareth is more documented in the flesh than Constantine, right? Than Cicero. There are better historical accounts of the life of Jesus of Nazareth than a lot of ancient figures up to the first millennium, 1000. History, and then there are dark periods between 1000 and 1500. History got really rigorous in the last 300 years. But and so did hagiography. I'm not saying that they're getting the right ideological accounts of any given eras or nations or times or whatever. But there are reliable accounts that certain people existed. There are no Kaiser Sozes that exist now. The government kind of tracks everything, and government history kind of tracks everything, and they give their own spin on it. But in the first Christian millennium, Jesus is among the best secularly accounted for, whether you're talking about people that are against him, like Josephus, or Romans who are just sort of neutral at best, like Suetonius. Jesus is so historically accounted for. And then his followers have such a robust account for him that are so consonant, that are, synoptic, that so strongly, robustly attest to his reality, his historical reality. And his historical reality can't be extricated from what he came here for. And the funniest part of this that I just want to point out, science. I'm not one of these guys that repudiates all of science. Look at the Shroud. Look at the Shroud of Turin. This gets me psyched up every time because I was like 8 years old when my teacher came into my class in a Catholic school. It was the late 80s. It was a terrible time to be Catholic, actually. It was a terrible time because it was just, everything was looking like a black pill, like Catholicism's fake. A lot of the leaders had basically capitulated. You just had a lot of people saying, it's all fake. And she came in, my teacher came into the classroom and she goes, well, the Shroud of Turin's fake. And I was like, this is terrible. And I was always a skeptical guy, right? I mean, Steph will tell you how much I'm prone to doubt, Cartesian doubt. And that just broke my little brain. And I think I sort of became an agnostic at that point. I was a young agnostic for a long time, for many years, for the next 20 years, probably 8 to 28, say. And pretty atheist leaning agnostic. But when I heard, it dates to the medieval times, and then she explained to all of us, right? That was the time when the church ran everything and they really had the power to forge something like a Shroud of Turin or a relic. And they never could conceive back then of carbon-14 dating. They didn't know that it would ever be susceptible of such a test. Well, it turns out that was the lie. I mean, the 20 teens and the early 2000s became such a better time to be a Christian, particularly a Catholic, because this is a historical proof not only of Jesus the man, the way all those atheists were like, shut up, Richard Dawkins, you're an idiot, you're embarrassing us. Historical Jesus is real. But in a lot of the accounts of historical Jesus, because the church does allow its relics and things like that to be tested, when you don't have a bunch of like Judaizing scientists that have that revolutionary spirit and are trying to disprove the thing falsely, Then they prove the veracity of, in this case, the Shroud of Turin. And there's evidence of even the resurrection. You see a spiritual man. I was thinking about the shroud the other day because the New York Post had some Judaizing writer who took another crack at it. But what it turns out is that not only was Jesus there cotton, there's cotton particular to Jesus's area of Palestine. There was head wounds in a cloth called the Sudarium of Oviedo with like
they overlap.
They overlap the blood spatter on the Sudarium and the shroud, and they were like never stored in the same place at the same time. It's like 121 wounds, type AB blood, which is always the case when the church has verified. Before the church even knew about the Shroud of Turin, they started doing Eucharistic miracles. Jesus' blood is always type AB. And the best part is that there is simply no way, even with our technology today, even if you use like the highest electron blasts, there's no way to get the coloration only into the topmost fibrils of something like a Shroud of Turin. It takes a light burst of 1/40 billionth of a second, which would be all light and no heat. So it'd be like an EMP, but an EMP wouldn't do it. In order to have a photographic image like that of Jesus on a non-photosensitive substrate. So it's basically showing that Jesus, when he began to rise from the dead, there's a tremendous amount of light that couldn't have been made in his tomb by any other natural or artifactual substance under the sun. Then especially, or today now, even with our technology, it had to be something like a great amount of white light, and he's rising. Also, the wounds show that maybe the blood was traveling downward.
Even the separation of the fluids. You know, when you're on the cross, your blood and the water in your blood separates from distress. I think they even tested pheromones inside the blood to determine whether the person who was wrapped in the shroud was actually undergoing an actual crucifixion, because you can tell if there's stress hormones and that sort of thing present in the blood even post-mortem. That's correct. Which is also interesting too. I think the secular scientists knew what part of the shroud to take too, because nuns did weave the fibers back in at a later date because it did get damaged, and they tried to repair the shroud by weaving in similar fibers that obviously were closer to our time period now. And there's a historical record there. So if you were a secular scientist trying to discredit the shroud, it would be incredibly easy to do so by even just being minimally observant of the history of the shroud.
From the repaired patch that we know what it was. It was a late 14th, early 15th century fire in France, at a place called Chambray, France, where the part of the shroud was burned. They did repair it. Nuns repaired it, and they took like all three sites, test sites. When they tested it in 1988, it was tested in 1978, but when they did the big carbon test in 1988, they took all three patches from the repaired patch of the fire of Chambray. Tucker Carlson recently did a show on this, and he was like, I'm not going to say we know that this was intentional, because you have to prove malice, and that's tough, and he probably doesn't want, he's deep pockets, he probably doesn't want the lawsuit coming at him, but that basically looks like Judaizing haters of Christianity, who are the scientists that did this test. The church gave over the relic and said, go ahead and test away. And then they pick all three sites from that one repaired patch. I think it's very obvious. It was very well known in 1988 that the fire of Chambray had required patch on this thing, and it would show up perfect right around the 1400s. And then they had the whole narrative cooked up. Well, so that was a false debunking. You had to debunk the debunking. And once you do so, the evidence is very spectroscopic analysis has been like, not only was Jesus real, he's from northern Palestine. Oh, the leptons that were the Roman coins on his eyes were a special minting by Pontius Pilate.
Never guessed. Yeah.
Sorry, I get
never
psyched up.
Guessed too.
They were also claiming that these aren't really well-known Roman leptons. This was a special minting by Pilate there in that region of the Roman Empire, that little armpit of the Roman Empire that Palestine was. And that explains it. So it was literally Pontius Pilate coins. They were trying to claim they were fake coins before. There are only like 5 of these in the world. How could that be faked? So Jesus is very, very real. He looks exactly the way you and I think he looks. He looks like a based Chad. He's the God man. He looks exactly, the stupid accounts where they try to make him look like a caveman. Time magazine, Judaizing Time magazine will try to make him look like a caveman. No, he looks like he's like a 6 foot, slender, muscular God man, exactly as you think about him. He had all the head wounds. He had the stress hormones, and the photographic image on the non-photosynthesis sensitive substrate basically proves that he was resurrecting. So
there's even some speculation that because obviously if he was becoming like spiritual, like that part of him had to pass through that the shroud that was on him. And so I'm not sure about this, but there's speculation. There's even like almost like an X-ray image on the shroud of like internal organs even being like passed through the fabric of the material. On screen right now is that pilot lepton that Tim was talking about, and then the shroud right eye image, and then the magnified area just to kind of show that the suspected pilot, the lepton from Pontius Pilate at the time, was present on the eyes of the decedent in the shroud, and they magnified that. So again, it's just like whoever, if secular science wants to say, okay, this is such a forgery, like this is such a detailed, specific, uncreatable. You can't recreate this forgery. Yeah. It's like, okay, fine, you want to carbon date it and you want to throw out some science on a corner of it that was rewoven, closer to our time frame. How did they do this?
Right.
Tell us how they did it.
Yeah,
they still can't answer that question.
Very much like to know, you Jews. And here's the thing. It's very exciting. It's very exciting to see how historically accurate the story of the 3 wise men following the star, Bethlehem, Nazareth, Palestine, 33 AD, winter, December 25th, all that stuff turns out to be absolutely true. Trent Horn and Jimmy Akin have both done good work showing that basically all those traditional signs of the star at Christmas and the nativity are very, very real. I mean, they never commit overly to them because that's the hedgy Catholic Answers way, but both of those 2 guys have done good work in different articles of Catholic Answers Mag. I actually did a really nice article in Catholic Answers Mag many, many moons ago about 4 real signs of the nativity. It's just all real. And that's not true if you look at like the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama or whatever, or Jainism or Hinduism. It's all fake. It's exactly what dumbass secular soy boy leftists say, little metrosexuals in New York and LA, what they say at their little smut rags about all religion. All that's true about polytheism, and all that's true about, the hagiography that is Islam. This character of Muhammad and his uncle Ali. I mean, it's a sham. The same sham that Judaism became after it killed Jesus and rejected Jesus, and the Second Temple fell. Everything's a sham but Christianity. There's one white pill, and he was a man, and he's historically tethered to the account of him that you and I learned when we were a kid, that everyone else, all these secular lefties try to make like, well, that's the historical account of Christianity, just like the historical account of Jainism or Hinduism or Buddhism, whether we've embraced it or not. Of course not. This is just kind of child's tales. No, these science and history, and of course, philosophy, we'll talk about philosophy in a second, prop these accounts up as actually real and defensible.
Just to corroborate what you had just said earlier about the historical Jesus, not just in Scripture. Obviously, we take Scripture very seriously and respect it through, as Catholics. But there is evidence of Jesus just being a historical figure, and this I have on screen right now would just be kind of interesting for people to hear. But evidence from Roman and Jewish sources. So Tacitus, a Roman historian, writing in the early 2nd century, mentions Christus, who was executed by Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. Josephus. Now I'm going to Josephus. Yeah, thank you. Correct me every time I misspell this, which will be often, or mispronounce it. The Jewish historian, writing in the late 1st century, refers to Jesus, his brother James, and John the Baptist. Pliny the Younger, in his correspondence with the Emperor Trajan, Pliny the Younger mentions early Christians meeting regularly and singing hymns to Christ as to God. Other Roman and Jewish writers, so writers like Suetonius, Lucian, and Thallus, also make brief references to Jesus or early Christians. Now, archaeological evidence is the Pilate inscription. On an inscription discovered by Caesarea Maritima, confirms the existence of Pontius Pilate as the Roman governor of Judea. I don't know why that's they're counting that for
just
Jesus.
Because Pilate's so wound up in the Jesus story. He's the one that signed on the dotted line of his dad.
So tombs and archaeological sites. So archaeological findings in Jerusalem, including the discovery of a possible garden near a traditional site of Golgotha, align with some gospel accounts. So evidence of crucifixion, physical evidence of Roman crucifixion, similar to the ones described in the New Testament, has been found in various locations. And then there's other early Christian writings. So obviously the Pauline epistles, early Christian writings, and those sorts of things. So even just outside of Scripture, there's a lot of historical account of the fact that he was a historical figure, a man, and he did live, and there are other historical figures are writing about him.
Yeah, and that, like I said before, that account is always tied to the mission that is unsubtly theological, and his death, which he foretold, he was telling his apostles, I'm going to go to my death. And he's not trying to enrich himself or get virgins or wage like 78 out of 79 battles, being on offense 78 out of 79 times like Ali and Muhammad. He's not, there's no perversion of the fruits of the faith for its leaders or practitioners, the way you start seeing the real perversion of the fruits of the faiths for the leaders of Judaism. If you take a look at like either of the Talmuds, I mean, this is just, they're saying, like Nietzsche said of the Jews, like this is what we call dissimulation. They were a minority, and they're like, well, here's how we can preponderate. Here's how we can be rich. Here's how we can do banking. Here's how we're allowed to treat the goyim. You see all that in the books of the Talmud, and Babylonian, especially in Jerusalem Talmud. There's just none of that in Christianity. Christianity, it's Jesus like, I'm the God man. I'm going to my death. I'm going to my death after night before I do so, I'm going to do the first consecration. I'm going to make a Eucharist. I'm the bread of life. I'm the bread of manna. I'm the extension of the manna in the desert. This bread you will eat and you will never die. And, this is Judaism plus. This is real Judaism become Christianity. And Christians have to love their enemies, have to pray for their enemies. There's just no false motive, if we're talking ideologically or philosophically, imputable to the leaders of Christianity. Now, I know when you get into the actual bishops of the church, now these guys are fallen men. But we're talking about the founder of the religion, which, Jesus, who is the equivalent of Muhammad. There's just nothing in it for him. He was good to everyone he met. And those accounts are wildly preponderant. It's just, there's no Roman or Jewish historian that's like, yeah, this Jesus had this side hustle. There's none of that. So all that shit, that Dan Brown, 90s, MTV, Christians are always hypocrites because Jesus was a hypocrite. 1988, Shroud of Turin was faked. Stuff turned out to be true. All that turned out to be the hoax, what was bogus, etc. And what turned out to be true is just Christianity. So that's really cool, okay? And today's show is all about, well, Catholicism is the true form of Christianity. I am including, for the purpose of today's show, Orthodoxy, not to be nice, but because it's unground. It is indisputably Eastern Orthodoxy tied to the land of what we call Eastern Europe. Greek part of Europe, Turkish part of Europe, the east of the Caucasus part of Europe. And it was always the eastern lung of the church. Now, they always had the patriarchs who were lower in rank than the Pope, and even at, third and fourth and fifth and seventh councils, they were like, the Pope's in charge. Hey, Pope, could you excommunicate our guy who ended up being second in command, the Patriarch of Constantinople? All sorts of ways that papal claims are grounded in fact. All sorts of ways that papal claims are grounded in fact will show, okay, not that Eastern Orthodoxy is false, but that it needs to recognize the Pope and recognize the things that the other minor disputes that we argue over. The main dispute with Eastern Orthodoxy is over the papacy. And guess what? For that whole first millennium plus half a century or so, they said, yeah, we have to follow the Pope. He's first. He does have this universal appellate jurisdiction, which is why he was being appealed to at Ephesus, which is why he was being appealed to all kinds of ways in those first 7 councils. And they were like, yeah, get the Pope to excommunicate the second in charge in the church. So that's an appellate jurisdiction. It's a universal jurisdiction. What else do you want? But I'm not saying that Eastern Orthodoxy began in 1054. That wouldn't be fair. It is a legit apostolic Christianity. There's only 2. Hopefully there will be one someday. Hopefully they reunify. By the way, at the reunion of Florence in the 1400s, they admitted they were totally wrong. After that council, they said, we were wrong about Filioque, wrong about the Pope. They came back. And then they got coerced into annulling their reunion. They got coerced by basically angry peasants with pitchforks. And it took like 10 years. And I think the first 2 patriarchs of Constantinople were down with it. And then they kept just like cycling through those guys and be like, get a guy. The third one after the reunification was like, okay, fine. I'm anti-reunion with Rome. But the first 2 were for it. They couldn't get one that would annul it until eventually they did. It took them 10 years. So we were one, once again, the 2 true lungs of the church, East and West. Would to God that happens again, but it has to happen under the right auspices. Seems they have this protesting spirit, which is why you see them align in all sorts of ways that make them look stupid with Protestants. They go all the way back to Jesus. They have bishops. So you can't throw them under the bus there. They just get that weird anything but Catholicism, proddy kind of spirit of embitterment. You'll see that out of them, and you're like, oh, are they just Protestants? No, they have real bishops that are really apostles in that lineage. But there's no dispute over. I kept pressing ChatGPT. What's the best religion? What's the most rational religion of all? What's the most historically grounded one? And it said, well, it gave me like 3 or 4 and said, if we were pressed to pick one religion as the most historically and philosophically reasonable overall based on the combined weight of evidence, coherence, and intellectual tradition, the strongest candidate is Christianity, particularly in its classical philosophical forms. Catholicism, it says, or Eastern Orthodoxy, because it's got this strong historical core. And ChatGPT says Jesus of Nazareth was well-attested historical figure, acknowledged by virtually everyone.
Except for like modern day atheists.
Well, no, I mean like I think Chris Hitchens and all the other 4 horsemen atheists were always like, Richard Dawkins, you are a moron if you think Jesus was not real as a historical figure. They all jumped on his case. So it's pretty much everyone. But here's one thing I will say. This is a little bit of a nod to the coming debate with Jay, which is we did a blood sport one, and that was really kind of a waste of everyone's time because it was just interrupting. And I mean, you could say, oh, blood sports are cool, bro. Sick. But I mean, yeah, I like heavyweight boxing. I used to like MMA. It just got kind of white trash. Yeah, I realized it was white trash. But I think what's really cool is blood sports in the ring of fighting, boxing and punching and kicking and all that. And I think debate is really cool according to some rules where you're not just gish galloping. You know, you're not just like, we're here to debate this whole thing from all its aspects. And you're not just saying, hey, I said first, you have to respond to my point, and I'm going to talk over you until that's just dumb. So that was a waste of everyone's time when we did that 3-part debate on Tim Pool. Also, it became really evident this is between Catholics and Orthodox, the two historical Christianities, the two apostolic Christianities. And according to ChatGPT, the two classically theist Christianities. Now, I do want to set this up. The more I've prepared for the J debate, the more I've learned that huge swaths of Eastern Orthodoxy are not actually classically theist. They're not actually classically theist. And you're gonna hear us talking about those terms on Friday as we debate on Elijah Schaefer's channel. It's going to be great. But historically, okay, if you don't know anything about did Jesus actually establish the papacy, which we're going to debate on Friday, or filioque, who is really wrong? I think this is the most easy to split over. You know, who is wrong on the filioque thing? And then we're going to talk about God as really the classical category of classical theism. God is pure act. I'm going to talk about that on Friday. But if you don't know anything about that, then you could just say, okay, well, what's the best religion in the world? And if you don't know how to distinguish those things, you're just going to go to, okay, the form of Christianity that was really tethered to Jesus himself and the first apostles, which were all bishops in either the Catholic or the Orthodox Church. You know, don't get into the papacy thing for now. So you're just going to say RC or EO. And that's exactly what ChatGPT says when it was hedging its bets. And I was like, don't be a bitch, ChatGPT. Quit being a little hoe. Don't give me 3 or 4, give me 1. I was like, come on, I'm pressing you. What's the best religion? What's the best war to do, ChatGPT? And it told me, if I'm really pressed, it's Christianity in its classical philosophical forms. Now, you're going to see that fall apart a little bit on Friday. But historically, Eastern Orthodoxy has, historically it has as strong a claim as Roman Catholicism, because they're just those two lungs, Constantinople and Rome, the west and east and west lungs of the Christian church. And we do allow that term church to be applied to Eastern Orthodoxy because of their bishops. Historically, you say RCEO. And sort of to be continued on this episode, like, what's the best religion? Okay, well, we need classical theism, and we need to get to the bottom of the did Jesus establish the papacy, and is the filioque a Charlemagne generated falsehood in the year like 800, or is it theologically correct? Well, we're going to get to that in my debate on Friday. We're going to travel out in the RV tomorrow. I always bring the whole fam. I don't travel alone. I don't do alone travel. Have you done anything alone in a while? Like, every time you go anywhere, like 3 of the 7 kids are like, I'm coming along. Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I am a FM. I'm a family man, and we do things our own way. I've talked about that a lot. We're up late playing video games, watching movies with the fam. Taking them out a lot this year in the RV. Last year, I feel like we didn't go out in the RV enough. And I'm like, it's just languishing where we store it. So let's go out a lot. The RV is a lot of fun. How many of you guys have RVs out there? All right, let's do super chats. If you want to fight me, then super chat me. I think there's a super chat right here. Let me go over here. Well, let's get lots, or else there's a question. I think somebody an earlier comment mentioned that Jay was saying something about the Catholic Church is something about charismatic or something of that sort. And I don't know if this question is tied into this or this is its own
question, but does the charismatic part of Catholicism come from the gifts of the Holy Spirit given to us at baptism or no? And that was a $50 super chat from Soulquest. So thank you.
I mean, you're asking an opinion here. And my opinion is it hasn't produced good fruits. But there are times, I mean, technically the charismatic renewal, very post-Vatican II thing. I mean, it seems to really come from Vatican II's fruitiest spirits. But has it been condemned by the church? No. So I gave you kind of my opinion. It seems fruity. And then the technical answer, it hasn't been condemned by the church. I know I'm kind of hedging there, but I don't know that much about it. I probably know as much as you do. It's pretty fruity, but the church hasn't condemned it. So what does that mean?
Our Lutheran friend in chat was saying that our lineage is perfectly traceable, just like the Roman Catholic succession. The difference is that we believe presbyterial succession is valid, just as episcopal, which is ratified by the Roman Catholic Church.
It's not, though.
And then he goes on to say, even then, we still have altar pulpit fellowship churches who can trace episcopal lineage to the apostles, though unrecognized, obviously, by Rome. I mean,
just stop while you're ahead. Let's chat GPT it, right?
Real-time chat GPT.
Yeah, real-time chat GPT. Okay. I mean, you're just drinking Kool-Aid that your Lutheran pastor told you, or whatever they're called. Okay. Both Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy can claim apostolic succession.
I remember that Lower Lodge was during your first debate with Jay was saying that he was like, he kept arguing that point that they're traced all the way back to the beginning as well. Like a lot of them really truly seem to believe that. Where did that come from?
I mean, they have to have it. It's a must have. It's amazing how many people are Protestant. I'm not really shocked. Yeah, I mean, you might not be shocked on Friday either when you hear, oh, wow, the nuances you have to get into to decide whether or not the Filioque is correct or the Eastern Orthodox are correct about it. It's a closer call than other stuff. The papacy is more obvious once you just see the facts. Mm-hmm. But everyone, Protestants, Orthodox, Jews together have lied about the historical papacy. So that's more obvious, but it's been more lied about. The elements of classical theism that pertain specifically to Catholicism and are kind of rejected by Orthodoxy, that makes it more obvious too, that the smart people really go Catholic. But I am shocked at how many Protestants there are. And the fact of the matter is that they pretty much have to say, well, at least some of our branches have apostolic succession. So here's what ChatGPT said. Protestantism as a whole does not claim apostolic succession in the same way that Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy do. Okay. So apostolic succession in Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, both the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church claim that their line of bishops, going back to the apostles, preserves the unbroken chain of authority and teaching that was handed down by Jesus and the apostles. The apostolic succession is a key element in their understanding of ecclesiastical authority, particularly the sacramental authority of the clergy, especially bishops. In general, Protestant denominations do not emphasize apostolic succession in the same way. And then, but here, let me make it clear. But isn't it true? I like how you can push back that both Catholics and Orthodox acknowledge one another's apostolic succession. Just so everyone sees, we're not friends with them. I mean, they're close, and both traditions reject any such claim by Protestants. Okay, so this is the new Pope wants to do a lot on the morality of technology. Well, here's us using ChatGPT Live. Yes, you're absolutely right, Tim.
Of course you are, Tim Gordon.
Both the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church acknowledge one another's apostolic succession and consider each other's bishops as validly ordained. Because they are. It's just not disputable with an unbroken line of succession from the apostles. However, both traditions reject Protestant claim to apostolic succession, especially in the same sense they understand it. They just don't know it. So, my I'm sure lovely souled yet retardo Protestant friend, Lutheran friend, you don't have apostolic succession, or else everyone is lying on you, including ChatGPT, or you can Grok it, or you can just get an Encyclopedia Britannica if you're a little older, or you could look it up in Google it if you're maybe a Gen X, whatever. Do it according to your generation and just ask anyone but your Lutheran pastor. Okay, let's not hear from that guy again.
So another another super chat hit Jay Dyer on divorce. Their beliefs make no sense, and offer him a debate on Orthodox divorce versus annulments. The orthos would lose very badly.
Yeah, this isn't. I guess I should, but it's not. It's such a turd to debate, but it is, I guess, necessary, because they do say, many Orthodox churches, and again, there's a Protestantism feel to it, because you could go to different autocephalous churches, and you can go to even different bishops within some of the same autocephalous tradition and get different answers through what's called the internal forum. And some of them allow up to 2 divorces and 3 marriages total, which is just weird when we have Jesus saying, he who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. And they're like, no. Jesus, sit down. You can get 2 divorces. or what Jesus really meant.
What's your favorite use? Contraception. Go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah, and they also have contraception by similar sort of equivocal use of what I would call equivocal use of the internal forum, where they're like, it's kind of up to your private conscience, but some of their traditions say no, some of their traditions say yes. So I'm not speaking for all of them. There aren't 39,000 of them. There are like 14 at least, and they break different ways. Only the Catholic Church has the 4 marks, recognized by that first council, one Holy Catholic Apostolic. One is not just by counting the amount of faith traditions, one represents a unity of ideology and theology. When there's only one church, I know we have the biggest tent because there's only one Catholic church. There are 14 Orthodox churches. There are like 40,000 Protestant denominations, arguably 50,000 plus. But only one meets the 4 marks of the church. One. Holy. Okay, holy means sacraments. And by the way, the Orthodox do have all 7 sacraments. They're real sacraments. They're valid. That's really Jesus in the Eucharist, etc. Holy and apostolic, but Catholic. One in Catholic. The Orthodox Church is missing those 2 marks. They can't really even claim to have them. That's another.
People always ask you that. They're like, why don't you become Orthodox? You're like, because I don't need contraception or up to 3 divorces.
Up to 2 divorces.
Up to 2, sorry, 2. I might. That was silly of me. I'm embarrassed. Yeah. I bet 2. Okay. Okay. So moving on. Oh, thank you. Song of Roland just said, hit the like button. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And also hit me up on timothyjgordon.com, where we have enrollable today is our homeschool. You just need to, if you're a homeschooler, learn how to do it. I can almost guarantee you're doing homeschooling wrong. Now I've formed this, I guess you'd call it a co-op, where I'm just going to be homeschooling in the mornings from basically 9 to 11:45 and showing you how easy it is to do. It's like $900 for the semester for whether you have 1 kid or 10 kids enrolled. People aren't doing this right. They're telling me, what homeschool curriculum do you use? Homeschool curriculum as a term is like circular square. Homeschools don't use curricula. Mm-hmm. John Dewey created that at the University of Chicago. Okay.
And there's sentence diagramming. So each semester you'll do sentence diagramming, math for the different grades, and Latin
age groups.
Age groups, right? Latin, sentence diagramming, and math.
And you can supplement however you want, but I would strongly encourage you not to go do a bunch of the little skills-based nonsense courses. We're doing it classical. Go to timothyjgordon.com and enroll. We start on, as of now, the start date's September the 2nd. We could bump it back by a week to enroll more, but as of right now, it will be September the 2nd.
Okay, so Saint Justin Martyr sent a super chat and he said, EOs say essence is identical to the Father alone with a laughy face. Essence is identical to the Father alone with a laughy face. Yeah, well, it depends on who you ask in their tradition. I mean, the big problem is saying that essence is really, meaning ontologically distinct from his uncreated energies. And that's a huge problem. That's polytheism. If the essence is really ontologically distinct from the energies and they're both uncreated, there's only one person that's uncreated, it's God. But if there are two of them, those are multiple gods. It's going to get real technical on Elijah Schaefer's channel. It is going to be like, it's, people don't understand. Like, as I know you'll get comments on your channel like, oh, Tim, your vocabulary, I don't understand you. You guys are going to be thinking that Tim's going to be speaking an entirely different language. Particularly for the Pure Act segments. Yeah. Pure Act, Filioque, and the papacy. Maybe not for the papacy, but for Filioque and the Pure Act, that's just the only way to do it. And I think it's still understandable stuff, though. That's adorable. Yeah. That's very cute. Yeah. Please ask Jay Dyer to make a positive case for orthodoxy. Both Protestants and Orthodox can't make positive cases for themselves. Only Catholics can. It's just reactive. Yeah. So there's this idea of coherentism versus foundationalism. You saw it when I debated both Jay and Laura Lodge on Tim Pool. They're just doing this coherentist thing. They're just trying to chop down our tree. And Protestants are like, well, yeah, we're protesters. And Orthodox are like, well, we're not Protestant, that's cringe, but we're just protesters too. They'll kind of admit under their breath. They don't want to be Protestants because they have more dignity than that, but they don't have enough dignity to build a tree of their own, a foundationalist tree. So they're always playing this coherentist game where they'll just pick out the most the items or concepts within Catholicism that need the most unpacking and might be easy to mischaracterize as false because they're difficult and don't lend themselves, aren't super susceptible of Occam's razor. They need some explanation. And then they just play sophist, do the Protestants and the Orthodox, and just make it seem false to all the IQ 95s out there. And then they're like, therefore, Protestantism. It's like, what? Laura Lodge was like, yeah, none of the Protestant sects are actually founded by Jesus, I know, but still not Catholicism. And that's what you end up getting in a coherentist way from Orthodoxy too. Yeah, we alone build from the ground up. Tim, have you heard of the Tradismatic movement? This is a comment by Ethan. Sounds like the charismatic movement, but traditional. I have not. It sounds very gay. I don't like movements within Catholicism. I do like the Latin Mass, and I assure you that by the time our children's children have gone to their eternal reward, 100 years or so, I would make the bet, and I love this because there's plausible deniability. I'll just be dead, but in 100 years, the Novus Ordo will be dead. I don't know how it'll happen. I don't think it'll be Marcel Lefebvre's ghost or anything like that. I don't think the same bit that a lot of my viewers do about his like quote unquote hero ball. I just think it's going to die out because it's true. It's valid. I'm at it sometimes because I can't go to New Orleans every week, but it's not true and valid to the plenary and same extent that the Mass of the Ages is. So there's that, but aside from that, we don't really, and that's not a movement. We don't need movements. I'm Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic. That's good enough. Maybe somebody out there in 2125 is hearing this as we're dead in our coffins. That would be wild. If the internet's truly forever and our Lord has not come back by then, maybe they're like, dude, this guy knew what was up. And like Kierkegaard said, the last refuge of the desperate man will be to say, the future will show I'm right. And it will. Eric says, Holy Orthodoxy is Fight Club. Holy Orthodoxy is Fight Club. Cool. I mean, that sounds awesome. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I mean, I like Fight Club. Interesting comments too. I want to hear a debate on Actus Purus. When is this? Well, Friday. This is Friday. Friday.
Friday. I don't know when it'll get posted. because I don't think we're live streaming it. I don't know. I'll have to ask Elijah.
It's Elijah Schaefer's channel. Is it right? What is his
on YouTube?
But what is his channel called? Is it like
I think Elijah Schaefer.
Oh, Elijah Schaefer. Okay.
People, you guys just have to dig around a little bit. Like Elijah Schaefer, formerly on The Blaze, he had a YouTube channel of 1 million or something like that, and then it started getting shadow banned. So he opened up a new one, and we're kind of helping him to build it, I guess.
Somebody's saying, Tim, use cuss words in this upcoming debate? ? Always.
I mean, I don't know. I don't. It's not like I plan it out. If it feels right, then you go with the shit.
It's the Catholics. It's like the nerdlinger Catholics that have such. It's just the guys.
Did you plan to say that?
Did you know that you said a curse word, Tim Gordon?
I have notes for it. My notes don't have like fuck or shit in them.
Maybe we should add a few.
Yeah. What kind of question is that? I mean, sometimes when like nerds ask nerdlinger questions, they're trying to be funny, and it sounds as literal and as solemn as an unfunny question asked by the same person. I can't tell if that's an attempted humor. No, I don't. Next.
Very helpful comment. Slightly offensive is his show's name. I was looking for his show's name. Like it's the Tim Gordon Show, but it's Rules for Retrogrades for Elijah Schaefer, because some people are trying to find that. I will, for locals people, I will let you know how that's going the day of. It'll be Friday. We don't know if it'll be live stream or not, but if you're a local supporter, I will correspond with you that day while Tim's live, let you know where you can find it once it comes on air. Usually Elijah will text Tim and just kind of give him an update. So we'll let you guys know about that.
Sometimes just to keep from getting bored. I'm good. I mean, everyone agrees I have good people skill. I'm a people person, so I'm not autistic or Asperg. But I have, just to keep from getting bored, sometimes I keep like eye candy up here. I keep I have this Russell Westbrook rookie card here.
I got a full screen it. All your treasures?
Yeah, my treasures. So here's a 8.5 graded PSA Russell Westbrook rookie card. This is a little piece of can we use the other camera?
Here, let me zoom you in.
This is a little piece of Madison Square Garden.
Back it up
floor.
A little bit. There it goes.
Back that thing up. That's signed by Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. I just got this back from the NSCC National Sports Card Convention. I send them stuff every summer. The
desk that Tim's sitting at is actually quite long, and so he has a lot of his treasures. Oh, you should show him the Gabe's there while you're at it.
I can't. I mean, like, I don't want to rip it down. My son has similar tendencies to me, so he loves Pac-Man. So he pretends under this desk is his desk because he gets tired of playing with his 6 sisters. So he has all sorts of Pac-Man ghosts and stuff like that drawn here. But this is just how we are. Gordon men roll with their treasures. So this is signed by Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. I need to send it to Larry Bird's people. You'd be amazed what you have to pay for autographs these days. Yeah. So I'm just looking around, just giving you guys a little view of what the desk is like.
Somebody said PSA 8.5. How much is that worth? Did you buy that card? Buy that card or pull it?
Yeah, I tend to buy them slabbed because it costs so much to get them slabbed yourself that and Russell Westbrook is still one of the most undervalued, underrated players in the history of the league, let alone the current league. That I think it's probably like $50. It's not worth what it should be. I should just. You
should tell them about your most treasured card. What it is.
Yeah, I have MJ's 86-87 Fleer rookie. That's a BGS graded 7. That's it's not what it once was. But during COVID, card collecting went bonkers, and I'd resumed my childhood sports card collecting a couple summers before that. I would say 3 summers before that, and I'd been able to get a bunch of the cards that I'd always wanted as a kid. But MJ's rookie rose to it's not worth nearly this now because the Last Dance documentary came out during COVID, and that was like the best movie that came out. 10-part documentary series. There's a huge draw toward MJ's career. It had been planned for decades, and card collecting was really, really profitable during COVID because people were back at home with nothing to do. And Yeah, that BGS 7 was selling on live auction on eBay for like 18,000. I remember we moved here and I was checking it on live auction eBays. Just, you know, similar specs to the one I had. It was like 18 grand.
Well, when he pieces out, that's going to be a valuable card.
Sports cards and autos aren't as susceptible of the death, the art, you know,
Really?
goes up when, yeah, that's more an art thing. I'm not even sure if it's totally true. And, you know, like Bill Russell has died recently. Jerry West more recently died. And I keep an eye on prices and values, and their stuff hasn't wildly risen or anything like that. But anyway, yeah, you got that for a Father's Day gift for a fraction of that, you know, like a sixth of that or something back in the day. And it's not worth $18K anymore, but that's my favorite. I don't know why I started talking about that. That's probably more a locals thing, but I just like my treasures.
Are we doing a local shows after this?
Yeah, we'll do a fast one.
What's the topic for then?
So we'll just go a little, I mean, there's not really a hot take on why Catholicism is the historically accurate religion. Maybe we could just do live question on that topic with the locals people. Mm-hmm. I think that's the best. Because, I mean, I'm not going to try to make a hot take out of something.
I actually need to look real quick and see, because I did tell the locals that I would, they could ask a question live on air. So let me just double check right now on here, because some of them wanted to see this thing. Okay, let me look here before we go. I'm not seeing one. I'm seeing if there's any questions. Usually for every live stream, we'll say like we have a show coming up, and then we'll ask the locals.
Check out the debate on Friday. It's going to be really cool.
This person says, I know you've touched on it before, but I'd love to hear more about the Council of Florence and how much it actually hurts the EO claim to the true church.
I mean, they were like reunited with Catholicism for a decade or 12 years or something. I'd have to check the exact amount. And they said, we were wrong, baby, please let us come back. We love you so much, baby. You know, and we were wrong about the Pope. We were wrong about Filioque. You know, two of their leader, you know, they're kind of number two, their guy who's the number two in the general church, in the early church, the Patriarch of Constantinople. The first one was pro-reunion. Then they got rid of him, and the second one came in and he was pro-union. They got rid of him. They shipped him out. And then the third one, like 12 years later, was like, okay, I'm anti-reunion. So, I mean, it hurts the claim a lot. But then again, so does the fact that at Ephesus, like the Third Ecumenical Council, they're appealing to Rome, to the pontiff as the boss, the one with a kind of universal appellate jurisdiction to excommunicate the Patriarch of Constantinople. I mean, this just begins very early.
Another local supporter said, I was having a mini debate with a Protestant friend, and I was asking him how the Bible can be infallible without an infallible authority existing for the first few hundred years. He responded with something like, but the church wasn't there when the Old Testament was established before Christ. What's a good response to this? Thanks.
Well, that it was canonized later. Don't misunderstand your own argument, my friend. The books of the New Testament were written at the same time that some of the fake books aspiring to get into the New Testament, like the Gospel of Thomas or James, were written. They were all written maybe around the same time. They're ratified later. So the Old Testament books were, 46 books of the Old Testament were written long before. There are pretenders to being in the Old Testament. It's when were they canonized that matters. Right. So it doesn't matter when a book was written. It's like, hey, they were canonized at this certain time.
Jam wrote, a local supporter said, historical facts and records often seem to be changed or ignored within the intention of smearing the Catholic Church. Doesn't that negative witness suggest something significant about the church?
Sure. Kind of like the Aristotelian principle of retorsion sort of works. It's not a quia demonstration or anything, or a propter quid demonstration, obviously, but it's a kind of third way of proving something. I mean, you always want to demonstrate propter quid, or failing that quia if you can. But there's this sort of third, well, look, it shows their bad motives, and it shows why are we the ones with the bullseye on our back. That's not a proof, but it's a motive of credibility, I would say. Yeah.
Son of Thunder, also on local, said, in the topic of history, agreeing with that Catholicism is the one true religion, I've deeply enjoyed starting at my conversion that we absorbed Aristotle. Being part of a church that we can begin where the greatest non-initiated minds leave off is beautiful.
I agree. I mean, Aristotle's really my favorite. I mean, I love Thomas Aquinas, and Aquinas has got all the grace of the Lord, but Aristotle's amazing. I mean, think of that green halo. Mm-hmm. Aristotle's the master of those who know.
Why is it green?
Dante Alighieri. Well, because he's a pagan.
Yeah.
But he's just so important. And he did this all just by correcting his retarded mentor, Plato. And, you know, he had to build a world of distinctions, abstract. He had to build a systematic philosophy on a world of distinctions just to show how wrong Plato was. Plato got like one main thing right, but then Platonism was a totally wrong way of showing it. And Aristotle just from the ground up, you know, showed the world what the world was made, what the fabric of being is woven from.
I think this is an Orthodox person in chat, said so many issues. This is a super chat. And so many issues, no married clergy, consequently no priests, consequently no catechesis, consequently no men, consequently no children. RC is OG prot.
Well, we read your remark. I don't really understand. Would you reread it? We read it out.
So many issues, no married clergy, no priests, no catechesis, no men, consequently no children. RC is OG prot. I think he's saying Protestantism. I think he's saying that because we don't have married clergy, we don't have priests, therefore we don't have real men in the church, consequently no children. I'm actually trying to understand.
We have priests who are men. Yeah, clarify, I guess, or whatever. It's just not. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I don't know what that means, though.
Some people are asking why the baseball hat, because everybody knows you hate baseball.
Oh, baseball. One thing that's weird is I like baseball logos. I like MLB logos. The NBA is lame. The logos are lame. I think they require all NBA logos to have a basketball in them, which feels like a little kid league or something. Feels like Pee Wee basketball league. Like everyone. Whereas baseball is really cool. It's just think of the Cincinnati Reds. It's just a cool looking C, and they don't have like a little baseball in there. But like the Seattle Supersonics I'm like, maybe there are 1 or 2 or 3 NBA logos that don't have a basketball, and they'll have to weave them in. They're like in the background somewhere. I'm like, if you're the Supersonics, that has nothing to do with a basketball. You're a basketball team, but it feels like some 3rd grade, school mascot rendering contest or something. To always, the one rule for entry, if you want to win the prize of the Pizza Hut personal pan pizza gift certificate, is you have to have a basketball in every logo. I just don't like it. I like baseball logos. They're like 150 years old. They're old timey. It's just, the problem is the sport is boring and old timey too. But this is my son's hat, and he thought it was cool when I wore it yesterday. So
you took him to a Rangers game while visiting my mom.
Yeah, I was in Dallas, last weekend, and we went to a Rangers game. Disappointing that they've gone to so many indoor baseball arenas. Baseball's boring, but I like to eat a hot dog like once a year and eat some peanuts and take Gabe. And there's really no college baseball is big here in Mississippi and Alabama. But I wouldn't like to go to a college game anyway. I like big league games. But we've got to travel basically 7 hours west or 7 hours east to either Atlanta or I guess Houston. 6 hours west or east to get to an MLB park. But I like being outdoors. I didn't know that the ballpark at Arlington had been rolled up for use. It was a new indoor arena. It's just weird seeing baseball indoor. It was fun, but. All right, should we close up?
All right, so we will, if you're a local supporter or you support Tim on YouTube, I will post the link that you can join the live stream just for you guys just to go over some of this a little bit more. And that should be up within the next 5 minutes. So check locals page, check your YouTube members page, and you should be able to join and ask questions.
Really important. If you homeschool your kids, try our homeschooling program, which begins on September the 2nd. Go to timothyjgordon.com and register. It's super cheap. It's an amazing deal. I'm going to show you things about homeschool you never dreamed were at the essence of being a homeschooler. It's just the best system of all the ones I've ever looked at is the one I'm running. now, and it's the easiest and the simplest and the most stress-free. And none of these moms that are doing homeschool are stress-free. They're all stressed out. TimothyJGordon.com. God bless you all. Check out the big live in-person debate on Elijah Schaffer's show this Friday, me versus Jay Dyer. It's a kind of rehashing of the goofy way it spilled out on Tim Pool's show. This will be much better. It's going to be formal. It's going to be timed. There's going to be, no interrupting. It's going to be based. Check it out on Friday. We're heading out tomorrow. Peace.